Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am TaylaAndre. Waking up with TaylaAndre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. My happiness is controlled by me. My health is controlled by me. My joy is controlled by me. I do not give my power away. I do not let others take power from me. The words that you speak are super important, especially the words that you speak to yourself. And so I just want to clarify that affirmations are needed and necessary in your day-to-day life, and I don't feel as if we pour enough into ourselves or pour enough into our kids, into our family. And so I wanted to pour into you and let you know that you are enough. Everything you need is right inside of you. All of the answers you need while you're seeking outside are right inside of you. Earlier, Remy was in the building and I was just like, yo, why are you so fine? And she was just like, I don't need these little $2 flip-flops. I said, it has nothing to do with what you're wearing. Like, your beauty does not come from the accessories or the clothes or the finances that you have. Your beauty comes from inside when you're willing. And I just want to give a shout out to Remy because she is so dope. She posted recently about how she just wants to be the example of good in the world without asking for it back. And so there are so many people that don't do any good in the world, but if they do good, it's under the guise of, look at what I'm doing, don't you want to praise me? And or what can you do for me? I'm gonna do this, but what can you do for me? And so as far as the news you should know is concerned, I'm really excited about this fact that Black-owned businesses see the largest surge in 25 years with the pandemic taking place. COVID-19 pandemic has a silver lining for Black entrepreneurs who've begun to thrive over the last 18 months. In fact, in 2020, more new Black-owned businesses were started than any time in the last 25 years, according to the Kaufman Foundation annual report of Black-owned businesses. The increase was greater than that of white-owned businesses or Asian-owned businesses. During the pandemic, nearly 400 out of every 100,000 Black citizens started as an entrepreneur during the ongoing pandemic. Ironically, the surge came about as more and more people of color face uncertainty about maintaining jobs and careers during COVID-19 pandemic. However, those feelings led many Black entrepreneurs to a why not attitude, and they started their startup and left their career plans and told their parents that this is not what I want to do anymore. A lot of students dropped out of school and started their own businesses. More like 400 out of every 100,000 Black folks started a business and are thriving. And so this is great news. A conversation that I was having yesterday regarding, as far as my meetings are concerned, one of the first things we do is check in. And the check-in is like, how are you for real? Like, how are you? I'm good. No, but how are you for real? And so we were having a meeting yesterday, and the gentleman that I was speaking to was just like, there's a silver lining. My daughters are 6 and 9 years old. And had we not had the pandemic, I'm over here like reminiscing on what we've done over this last year and how much I would have missed via travel and meetings. And so though I am in Zooms for 18 hours a day, I get to pick and choose what meetings I'm actually a part of. I don't have to go anywhere. There's no travel in my day, and I get to spend more time with my kids. And so I feel like that was the sentiment that I also feel like. I feel like the relationship with myself and the children have grown closer since the pandemic, though we've always been close. And a lot of other parents are seeing that I don't want to say neglect, but in a sense, like the neglect that was taking place, being a parent, working a full-time job, and then doing these other things that we all do and engage in. And the balance is difficult, and the balance is real. Like trying to find the balance between your work, your self-care, your health care, like all of it encompasses you are a whole person. The Motivational Monday through the Freaky Friday and the Spiritual Sunday. So every single one of us are very complex beings. And I feel like the pandemic opened up a part of us where we understood our own humanity and the humanity of others and started doing things differently. And so shout out to the 400 out of every 100,000 Black folks that started a business and are thriving. That makes me super excited, but not as excited as I am about Jamaica, planning to seek massive amounts of reparation money from Britain over the slave trade. The potential payout 200 years after the end of slavery in British Commonwealth could be worth billions of pounds. Jamaica plans to ask Britain for reparations over the Atlantic slave trade in the former British colony. According to reports, a senior government official said via a petition, the amount could be in the billions of pounds. Spain and Britain were the two countries at the epicenter of the slave trade, tearing Africans from their home continent to work on plantations for sugarcane, bananas, and other crops that created fortunes for their owners. They said, we are hoping for reparatory justice in all forms that one would expect if they were to really ensure that we get the justice from the injustices to repair the damages that our ancestors experienced. And this is from Olivia Grange, the Minister of Sports, Youth, and Culture. Our African ancestors were forcibly removed from their home and suffered unparalleled atrocities in Africa to carry out forced labor to the benefit of British Empire. Redress is well overdue. And so, yes, Jamaica, get all your money, get all your bread. I love it for you. So according to the National Library of Jamaica, an estimated of over 600,000 Africans were shipped to the Caribbean country since it was seized from Spain in 1655. Jamaica then became independent in 1962, but is still part of the British Commonwealth. To compensate slave owners, the British government took out a £20 million loan, a huge amount of money at that time, after it prohibited the trading of slaves in 1807. The ensuing interest on the loan wasn't paid off until 2015. An estimated worth of reparations could be to the sum of £7.6 billion, a number estimated on a private motion by Jamaica lawmaker Mike Henry, and based on the equivalency of today's terms into what Britain paid slaveholders. I am asking for the same amount of money to be paid to the slaves that were paid to the slave owners, Henry said. I am doing this because I have fought against this all my life, against chattel slavery, which has dehumanized human life. The petition has been approved by Jamaica's National Council on Reparations and will be filed pending advice from the Attorney General and 3 legal teams. The Attorney General will subsequently send it to the Britain's Queen Elizabeth. Yo, I am really excited by that. And the reason why I'm excited by that is because this now allows other countries to follow in the same footsteps. So all of the West Indies can go ahead and demand their pay as well. How did Jamaica do it? Let's learn from Jamaica. Let's take those steps and let's demand our reparations as well. A weed vape company offers Sha'Carri Richardson $250,000 endorsement deal. The endorsement will involve testing dab rings and vape pens as a resident doctor for the brand. Sha'Carri Richardson, as you know, may not be running in the up-and-coming Olympics, but she has received an endorsement offer related to the reason on why she's not competing in the first place. The 21-year-old who was suspended from the Tokyo Games after testing positive for weed, not enhancement drugs, not coke, not methamphetamines, for weed, has received $250,000 endorsement from Dr. Dabber, a vaping business with a focus on weed. The offer letter, which was announced to the world by TMZ, a representative from Dr. Dabber expresses sympathy for Rich's suspension, and then says that we believe that THC can actually have many positive effects on athletes' recovery and overall mental well-being. And so, yes, and yes. Employees are waiting to hear whether their remote work plans will be approved. So Google software engineers reported something in a recent survey that is surprised their managers, and it's that they felt more productive working from home than they ever did prior to the pandemic. Internal research also show that employees want more collaboration and social connections at work. A human resource president said that they declined to give out the exact figures, but said that more than 75% of those surveyed said that they crave physical proximity when working on new projects, and that there's something about innovative work that you just need that spark. When employees feel like those moments happen better when they're together, but they also like the fact that they're able to work from home and feel like they were more productive working from home. And so Google is trying to get people back into the office, but the people are fighting back and saying, no, we want to stay at home. The judge says that Edward Matthews poses a high risk of danger to the community and will stay in jail until his August hearing. But the truth of the matter is, you cannot pay me or convince me otherwise that the reason why they're keeping Edward Matthews, who was the white man in the video who spat at the black man and then went out saying all of these crazy, ridiculous racial slurs in New Jersey, is being held because his house is being staked out. They still waiting on him to come home. And so I really think that they're trying to keep him, from getting his ass whooped. The truth of the matter is, I really do think that they're trying to keep him in jail so he don't get his ass whooped when he get out. It has nothing to do with him being a menace to society, because he's been a menace to society, and they've been trying to hold him accountable for the actions and words that he's been out here doing for the last 2 years. And so we will follow that story, because I just want to see if he finally gonna get his ass whooped. So Haiti's president's injured wife, Martine Moisey, shares photos of herself in the hospital after being shot and says that she can't believe her husband was assassinated in front of her without saying any last words. She's 47 years old, and she tweeted out 2 photos from her Miami hospital bed on Thursday, where she is recovering from gunshot wounds to her arm and leg. The Haitian First Lady was evacuated from Haiti for further treatment following the July 7th assassination of her husband. There have been more suspects that have been identified in the investigation, including a former Haitian senator, a fired government official, and an informant for the U.S. government. Dimitri Harold, the head of security at Haiti's palace, has since been taken into custody for questioning as well. A Miami-based security firm is also now facing questioning for allegedly hiring the 20 Colombians believed to be behind the attack. But please, I've said this once, I'm going to say it again, I'm going to repeat it until y'all don't listen to me no more. I truly believe that we had our hands all in that pot. For FBI informant, CIA informant, for what? I'll leave that there. Social Security payments for 69 million Americans could rise 6.1% due to the soaring inflation and the biggest cost of living hike since 1983, 38 years, baby. And so during Citizens Leave estimates, Social Security could rise 1.6 next year. It would be the largest increase since 1983, driven by soaring inflation. Meanwhile, seniors are still living on 1.3% raises from 2020, the smallest in 10 years. I remember, so I asked my grandmother about this because there were some programs in Alabama I was trying to get her in, and because she is a veteran and against my grandfather's pension, she didn't qualify. And so I was like, Nana, do you guys get increase? And she was like, baby, yes and no. She was like, do they give us an increase? Yes, but that increase is about like $5 a year. It's about 50 cents a month. Like it really is no real increase. And I don't understand how you spend all of your, and this is why it's important to plan for your retirement. This is why it's important for you to get life insurance. This is why it's important for you to be mindful of your IRAs and your 401s. And it's just because the government has you paying all this money into a system that ain't finna pay you out. And not for real, living on a 1.3% raise from 2020. That's insane. What's 1.3% out of damn $100? Like you really ain't getting nothing. And so what's insane or what's crazy to me is if they raise Social Security 1.6%, how do you raise Social Security but you don't raise living wages, but you don't raise the area median incomes numbers? You don't raise the number in which that you can make in order to qualify for social services. Like it's crazy to me because we see an influx in everything from bread to eggs to meat to this to that. There's an influx of everything across the board, but there's no influx in pay. And going back to the 300 for every 100, 400 Black citizens for every 100,000 Black citizens over here starting new businesses, you gotta create things for yourself because no one's coming to save you, period. The Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer, 82 years old, says that he is not retiring and he is happy on the court despite the pressure from the left for him to step down so Biden can pick a replacement. As we know, Supreme Court justices don't have to step down. They can be there for their entire life until the day that they die. And this is why it's so important of who we have sitting on that bench, because it plays a role into what's going to happen for the next 60 to 80 to 100 years when anyone sit in their seat and never leave. And so we have been hearing about the public calling for Breyer to step down to make way for a younger justice. Currently, they are outnumbered on the court from 6-3. The late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg resisted similar appeals and ended up being replaced by conservative Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who is a batshit crazy. Currently, control of the 50-50 Senate is up for grabs in 2022. And though he said he hasn't made a final decision on whether or not he's going to step down, he said that he enjoys his role and being able to speak at conferences as a senior leader, and that he hasn't made his final decision, but he's leaning towards he's not going nowhere. Kamala Harris, it's coming out that she is unbearable to work with. More senior advisors that have been in the White House who have been working with presidents and vice presidents and have continuously, day in and day out, been in these positions of power are like, yo, we can't work with her. She's unpredictable. She's demeaning. She would leave interns in tears and staff paranoid that she would snap at them. And that's when your ass got to snap back. The hell I ain't your kid. Don't talk to me crazy. But you feel like you can't have a conversation like that because you finna be fired. I'd be the one fired because you ain't finna talk to me like I'm your child. We're both adults. You can talk to me like an adult and you can have a little respect in your voice. And so sources describe to reports how Harris is unpredictable and at times extremely demeaning when they worked for her. It follows a report of abusive workplace atmosphere in the VP's office. Staffers who have worked for Harris while she was senator, San Francisco's district attorney, and California's attorney general have resonated with the reports. Professor Barbara O'Connor claims that 20 interns working for Harris came to her crying because they felt like they were not valued and disrespected and demeaned. I don't know why y'all surprised. She don't hide that. Chicago mental health professionals will be dispatched on 911 calls instead of police officers following the defund police protests, as gang members now outnumber officers 10-1. So the city is launching a 2-part alternative response to the pilot program that takes more public health approach to respond to mental health crisis during 911 calls. A mental health professional and paramedic will be dispatched to mental health related calls instead of police officers. Mental health professionals will also be stationed inside of 911 call centers, and from October will be responding to some of the 911 calls by phone. The initiatives aim to both ensure people suffering a mental health crisis get the help they need rather than going to jail, and free up the police to actually tackle crime. This comes as there was a mass exodus from the Chicago Police Department, with more than 363 officers retiring between January and June of this year, which is higher than the whole of 2018. Defund the police protests following George Floyd's murder have only left around 13,000 police officers remained, while some crime have surged. And so more than 100 people were shot, at least 17 were killed over the 4th of July weekend alone, while shootings have spiked 11% so far. But again, I say this time and time again because we're like, oh, since 2020, every single last one of us were locked in a damn house during 2020. People were out scared to go outside during 2020. So did we see an increase from 2020? We probably saw an increase in everything during when you compare it to 2020, except for abusive relationships. There's actually more calls on abusive relationships during 2020 when people were stuck in the house with each other and husbands was beating on wives and parents were beating on kids. Like, now that we should be seeing an increase since people are now dispersing. Black Lives Matter blames cruel and inhumane embargoes for Cuba, as Cuba is still up in arms. The Cuban government is blaming anyone and everyone that they can. They're like, it's you revolutionary musicians. It's your music that caused all of this. And it's crazy because they don't understand. I just got an aha moment, right? And so I have a friend who has like an iron thumb on the neck of the children. And so it's like, you truly do not see the harm that you cause trying to control everything. And with the authoritarian communist regime, you control everything. People get sick and tired. I was looking at different TikToks coming in from reports coming in from Cuba, and they're now kicking in doors of protesting leaders or leaders that are in the forefront of the protest, kicking in their doors and arresting them, not for a crime that they committed. Queen Yanazha, the Native American that we have conversations with about native land and sacred land, she recently posted that one of her friends or colleagues in Cuba was wearing American flag shorts, was ticketed $120. Mind you, we spoke with Uncle Timmy yesterday. Uncle Timmy said that they get a stipend of $20 a month. $20 a month, but you're told to pay a $120 fine. Now, if your income is $20 a month and you get fined 5 times more than what you make, you most likely don't have that money in the bank or underneath the mattress. So what are you going to do if you can't pay a fine? You get sent to jail. People are being jailed for not being able to pay astronomical tickets for stupid shit, such as wearing American flag shorts, such as holding an American flag, talking about America. Remember, Uncle Timmy told us yesterday that if you're in a group and you are one of 4 people, one's an informant and one is a government employee. And so it's you and your partner that are having a conversation, and 2 informants that are about to go tell the government what y'all plotting, planning, and talking about. And if you're talking about America's going to save us, America's going to come help us, and you get snitched on, your door is being kicked in and you're going to jail. What's going on, Janet? Good rising to you. Aside from that, reports are also coming in that, so remittance. Does anybody know what remittance is? So if you're Haitian and you send money to Haiti, that is a form of remittance. That is them getting monies from an outside source. And so all of the Floridian Cubans that are sending money back to Cuba, that these remittance, the bank, the government took all the money out of the bank. And so people are going on their card trying to get some money from their family members, sending it in, and the money's gone. So we're going to go ahead and transition because Julia Mejia is live with us today. We're going to have a nice little political conversation about what's going on and what the things that we need to know as far as Boston politics. And so let's go ahead and transition, pay some of these bills. I am TaylaAndre. Waking Up with TaylaAndre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day. We link up at about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. If there's anything that you want to talk about, anything that you want to bring up, you can, y'all could call, right? 617-272-3387. Feel free to give us a call anytime to add your 2 cents. This ain't about me. This about all of us.
Baby mama, you never sent us the link. Somebody from my team is calling you.
It's in your it's in the calendar invite right now.
Oh, it is? Okay, so give me a minute to log on because I'm getting almost there, okay?
All right, do what you gotta do.
What you gonna talk to me about?
Everything.
Oh my god, I'm scared.
Why? We talk about everything all the time.
Oh my god, don't put me in the hot seat. No, I'm literally, I'll probably be home in like 5 to 7 minutes, okay? I gotta pee and then I'll jump on.
Okay, so give you about 10 minutes.
Yeah, give me about 10. Yeah, well, I'll log on as soon as I pee, and I'm literally like 5 minutes from my house. But we weren't sure what was going on because we didn't get the link. Oh, listen, I talked to Liz Walker today about you.
Yay. She gonna do it?
Yeah, I'm gonna put you in touch with her assistant,
and
they're gonna book it.
Thank you, baby. Thank you.
Okay, baby. So I'll see you in a minute.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Thank you, love. I hope all is well. I still didn't receive the link yet if you sent it 30 minutes ago. I unfortunately am unavailable on that date. That's why I requested another day and time. The week of August 16th works best. Crazy. So I got an email from another representative stating that my appointment on so Julia Mejia asked us to give her 10 minutes. We're going to go ahead and give Julia 10 minutes. And while we do, we just going to listen to some music for a minute, if that's okay with you. July 22nd, which is the date that I'm unavailable. Is there any way that you and I can meet so we can have a little bit of consistency in our relationship the week of August 16th, question mark? I've been trying. Hey, loves. Hey, we waiting for Julia Mejia. She asked us to give her 10 minutes. So we're playing music in the background while she do that. What was that? I've been trying. Oh my gosh. Don't nobody want to do all this. Hey Siri, unlock my phone.
I'm not sure I understand.
Try. Oh! Call the other number, baby mama. You heard me? Baby mama, call the number I just sent you. Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am TaylaAndre. Waking up with TaylaAndre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. My baby mama in the building, y'all. My baby mama, for those who do not know, Julia Mejia is an activist, an advocate. She has been in these streets fighting for everybody's rights, even when you didn't even know who she was. She was advocating for education, and that's how I found her. She found me. She gave me a call, and she was just like, I was just wondering if you would like to be a parent to speak up about what's going on. I said, yes. You don't even have to finish the sentence. I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm down. Let's go. And ever since then, she has been my baby mama, and I love me some her. And Julia Mejia, my favorite person in the whole wide world. Everybody knows that when it comes to her, I am 100% biased because I loved her before she became city councilor at large by one vote. And so she be out here, honestly, raising the voice and putting the power back in the hands of the people and activating individuals on knowing what their power is and understanding how to work this system called politics, which is really politics because it's all games and they playing with us, y'all. What's up, Julia Mejia?
Okay, every day they're playing with us, all of us, including me. I'm one of those little chess pieces that gets, moved around the chessboard every now and then. But yeah, baby mama, I'm so excited to be here with you today. You always give me life.
Shut up your computer volume. Since we're using a phone, shut off the computer.
Okay, is that better?
Yeah, no echo.
Okay. So yes, baby mama, thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to be in your presence. I always love to speak with you because, you always my boo.
I'm excited. So can we please talk about what's going on in politics right now? BostonPoli, hashtag BOSPOLI. What is going on and why are we looking at 30,000 signs? Everybody is running for everything right now. I don't think I've ever seen this many candidates in my life.
I know. But this is exciting, right? Because this is the first time that I know of in the history of elections that we have so many people of color in particular who are running, right? Every single race to me is dominated by people who are living the reality, who are doing the work. So it's really exciting. I mean, I tell you this, we won by one vote, like you mentioned. And I think what we were able to prove to people is that you don't need to be super polished. You don't need to be, adorned with degrees and pedigrees. Like, everybody can do this and represent their people. And I think that, our race really demonstrated what is possible when everyday folks like us step into our power and decide to run for office. So I'm not going to say that I take credit for any of it, but I just do think that we set the bar for what is possible. And now we really have an opportunity to make sure that everybody who is running is not just cute and standing up and trying to slide right in, but that people actually have been doing this work consistently, not just over the last 2 years, but have been grinding in these streets in particular. And I think that that's what these times require. And I feel like for me, I look to see this wave of folks running and, some people I've never even heard of, right? And so I'm just keeping it 100. And then there's some people who have been doing work in different places and have been dedicated to the cause forever. and absolutely are getting no love or no support because they're not part of the establishment, right? And so I see a lot of people who are running that remind me of myself.
Y'all still hear echo, or the echo's over? Because I know we had an echo in the beginning. She went ahead and muted her computer. I just want to ensure, Wawa, just confirm that there currently is not an echo. And so,
I love me some Wawa, y'all. Can you hear me? I hope you can hear me. I hope you can hear me because I just be out here talking, not being heard, but Wawa is so. I met him through my Instagram live pop-ups. I do these things where I just like pop up on people. And we kicked it on my pop-up live, and he was talking to me about his work. And within weeks, we had a meeting scheduled. Now we're writing an ordinance in collaboration with the Boston Jobs Coalition folks on living wage and trying to bring Chuck Turner's legacy to life here. And so really excited to know that my boy Wawa is tuning in. Yo, what's up?
So talk about that a little bit. What are you guys working on?
Yeah, so Wawa, the Boston Jobs Coalition is looking to update an existing ordinance around the Boston Jobs residencies. As you know, we see a lot of people who are developing projects in the city of Boston, and our people are not at these construction sites. And you know this because you talk a lot about this, Tayla. And our goal is to really update and refresh that ordinance so that it has some teeth behind it and some accountability measures, right? And that we're looking at the living wages of people, because we can't even afford to live in the city of Boston, but yet people are building here, but we can't afford to stay here. So we want to make sure that this living wage effort is really reflective of the time of the moment right now. And so we're still in the process of writing it up. Once we have it in a good place, I'll definitely be reaching out to you so that you can put me on your show.
Okay, so I want to dig a little deeper on that for the people who do not know about what Chuck Turner was attempting to do and what you guys are building on that legacy and why that's important, and whether or not that is going to include these construction sites that got 7 white men on Dudley and nobody of color on that damn nowhere.
Yeah, so Chuck Turner, for those who don't know, he was a District 7 counselor, and one of the biggest things that he was known for was showing up to some of these construction sites and literally shutting them down because we didn't have representation on these sites, right? And so through that effort, the Boston Jobs Residency ordinance was established as a way to hold the city accountable to how they're going out some of these contracts, to who and how the building trades were employing people, our people in particular. And so there's a threshold for how many construction jobs were going to be earmarked. And so what the city, and even contracting with minority businesses to do the work. So some of it is construction sites, some of it is for other people who are planning into development, the architecture, all of these business opportunities that get missed, right? And so the goal for this particular ordinance is to strengthen it with some real meaningful accountability measures. To make sure that whole idea of like the shutting down is something that we can actually do and maintain a level of integrity around it. And then the other piece of it is around the living wage, a living wage. Right now, there's a lot of fight for like, I think of Ray West, Massachusetts was pushing for $15 an hour. There's some folks who are pushing for 22. So what we're hoping to do with the work that we've been doing with Wawa and his crew is to really establish what that looks like. And so we're in the early stages of bringing in some other partners to really flush things out. So you're catching me in the early stages of the conversation. We've been meeting for a week, really kind of like flushing things out, but we're at a moment right now that we're really taking a minute to pause and see who's missing from the table so that we can finalize and update this in a way that includes a lot of the different stakeholders.
Let's talk about some of the hearings that have been taking place within the last 6 weeks, and talk a little bit about what's going on with the school there was like a huge uproar when it came to education and the hearings around education. Can we talk a little bit about that and what that looked like? And we now have a passed budget. What was everybody up in arms and angry about budget for?
Yeah, well, so last budget, this is our second year in office, right? So this is our second budget that we have experienced. And so my first year in office, a lot of the stuff that we were hearing was around cutting the police budget by 10%, and we allocated those resources to help support mental health enrollment and funding actual proven violence prevention methods, right? So I was a no vote last year. This year, because I'm all about being, a growth mindset and really learning what this looks like, and also considering the times that we have to find ourselves in. We have an acting mayor. We have no police commissioner. So for me, in our office, we were working with a lot of the advocates and still trying to figure out what are some of the things that we can live with in this budget that will allow for us to set the foundation for next year's advocacy, right? Because for me, in my personal opinion, we can hoot and holler all we want this year, but everything's going to change in the next 6 months, right? Because depending on who gets into that big seat, they might have different ideas of how they would want to move the city forward, right? So for me, I was a yes vote with this particular budget, because I'll tell you what we were able to secure. We were able to, for the first time ever in the city of Boston, we were able to create a new line item in the budget that earmarks almost $1 million for jobs to employ 19 to 24-year-olds. Because oftentimes, a lot of the youth jobs, we also secured millions of dollars for just youth jobs in general. But we were very intentional about creating a budget item for 19 to 24-year-olds, because that is a segment of the population that often gets lost. They don't fall under the traditional category of youth jobs, because oftentimes those jobs are earmarked for people who are 18 years old. So we wanted to super focus our energy on this age bracket, because not everyone's going to go to college, right? Not everyone is hooked up to a trade. And so when young people graduate from high school, there's this gap. And if we're really serious about trying to address some of the issues that are happening out in these streets, then if we can target some of these dollars to create a program and funding to hire a cohort of 19 to 24-year-olds, then I see that as a victory. So we were able to secure that. We were also able to secure year-round, well, right now because of COVID, they're thinking of keeping all of the beer gardens and just open dining, with a lot of our smaller businesses who are able to use some of the sidewalks to kind of open up and operate. So a lot of these businesses who were able to at least sustain themselves through COVID, through this effort, they were going to lose out on that opportunity because of the ban got lifted. So we fought in our office to, because being the chair of small business and because we work with so many restaurants across the city of Boston, we advocated to have open outdoor dining option available post-COVID, right? And we also were able to secure $350,000 to support that small business initiative, right? The other piece of our budget win is all the jobs that we were able to secure in the workforce development. I'm the chair of workforce development. So all things that deal with employment is something that I'm deeply committed to. So through our efforts, I think we were probably close to like $9 to $10 million that we were able to secure for different types of youth jobs. And all different types of jobs for artists, low wage workers, and young people. So I feel really good about what we were able to do. And then the last piece of our budget win is looking at municipal broadband so that we can have it be a utility, and that we can make it more affordable for folks who don't have access to broadband. And so we secured funding to do a study around that. And then the last win that we were able to come up with was we put a complete stop. There was an RFP which is a request for proposal to have more video cams, more surveillance. And we know that surveillance oftentimes are racially profiling our people. So we were able to successfully stop that RFP from moving forward. And then we have a few other little wins that we'll be announcing later that are not yet to be published.
Share, baby mama. Tell us all the tea. I want to know it all. So you are out here doing what needs to be done, doing the work. And can we be honest and talk about how difficult it is being a city? Can we talk about the human side of you and how difficult this transition has been and what this looks like as far as being a political leader?
Yes. Well, I have to say that every state that I have been in, Tayla, and you know this, we have to knock down the door to get into. Because before C-Plan, there weren't a lot of parents in serving on board and in commissions and forming the conversation around education, right? There were parents, but not many parents of color who were living the reality, right? And so we made a seat at the table for ourselves. Nobody invited us into these spaces. And actually, we would go to conferences and hijack those conferences and change the conversation and make it about the things that our kids were experiencing, right? So I'm used to that. And when I started working at MTV, they weren't talking about the issues that were impacting urban youth. Every single story that I pitched, I had to fight for because everybody wanted to know what it has to do with Iowa. As though it's everything that deals with Black and brown people, there has to be something relevant to Iowa, and that was only because they were looking for national appeal. So I had to fight MTV to get our stories on the air. And now working inside city government, especially because we won by one vote and nobody, right, on that council, I didn't get any endorsements from any of my colleagues, right? So I walked into a space feeling really awkward. It was like that kid that nobody picked on the team. I was that kid. So walking into a space that I fought my entire life and then walk into it knowing that I'm a little bit too much for some, right? And I'm not enough for others. And so that's been really difficult in balancing this, right? And then I also had to learn my job publicly. I had to learn how to lead in a political space, which I hate politics, and I'm not here for that. So I call it out. I even call my own. I call myself out. I call my colleagues out. I'm doing the work, and that's it. I'm here to do the work. And so learning how to manage my tone and my delivery and how I collaborate with other people has been one of my biggest learnings in this job. And how do I do this work as an elected, not as an activist? And realizing that I'm always going to be a community organizer. And when I speak, I'm always going to speak with fire because that's what we turn to fire. So learning how to show up in ways that are more agreeable has been, I think, my biggest hurdle.
And is that demanded of you to show up in space differently, show up in space how you typically would do you have to change? Is there any code switching for you?
Oh, hell no, never, right? So that's why I say it's the biggest challenge because that isn't the expectation, right? When I was running in 2019, people were like, oh, you don't want to think that you're the Cardi B of the campaign, right? Just because I was a little bit too good, right? And, you tone it down and you shouldn't say you're an Afro-Latina, you should say you're Latina. Why do you want to go in the Afro-Latina? I'm just going to confuse everybody. What? And I'm like, if they don't know what it is, they can Google it. I'm going to play my Black roots, period, right? So throughout my entire campaign and my journey, it's all been about how I show up. And you don't want to get to the wrong message, you don't want your hair to be too big, you don't want to wear your earrings and your big hair all at the same time because all that would be overwhelming. I get that all the time about how I show up, and it's not just my tone and delivery, it's all of this, right? I'm big everywhere, right? I don't know how to tone any of this down, and I don't want to, and I will never water it down for anybody because if you can't digest me as I am, I'm not worth it for you. You can't have it with it, period, So it's not expected of me, because not everybody knows that I'm gonna get it from you, right? Like even when I go to West Roxbury, I was going hard around the issues of the advanced foods, and they didn't like it. And I was like, look, I'm gonna keep it 100. We kept it 100, literally. I'm gonna talk about these issues and whether or not you feel uncomfortable. I represent you whether you vote for me or not. And we could disagree without being disagreeable. But if you're gonna come to me, I'm gonna take a stand and I'm gonna speak my truth. And people have an expectation that you're gonna say one thing in one place and say something else in another, just so that you don't alienate your vote. And I'm like, no, I've been consistent in every place that I've shown up. I've been talking about the things that I talk about in West Roxbury, that I talk in Roxbury and everywhere in between. I don't change it up because these conversations need to happen across all 22 neighborhoods. And what I want people to know, right, is that, and Taylor, you know this because the organization that we founded is the Collaborative Cannabis Leadership Action Network. And even when I'm bringing people into these conversations that they don't want to have them, and even when I'm calling people out on issues of racial equity, I call them in. And I create space to have real uncomfortable conversations. And that takes a lot of, I wouldn't say courage, but it takes a very special type of skill to be able to convene people across their differences. And there's some folks who say that they do it really well, but I have to do that my entire life because every space that I've been in, even when I used to go to the welfare office, right, I had to show up and show people differences because they couldn't see me for who I was. They only could see me for what they believed me to be, right? So it's with that sense of spirit that I lead across the entire city, having difficult conversations with folks who are still stuck in 1970. And just because you are calling people out and you're always talking about Black and brown issues doesn't necessarily mean I'm anti-white, which is what the narrative is out there, that I'm a divider. No, I am a convener because I am leading into the conflict and I'm bringing people into the conversation and making folks have one conversation. I did that with the fireworks, when everybody was like, lock them up and throw away the keys. So like, nah, let's have real conversations. 450 people showed up to a town hall that we hosted. And we created a community-centered approach to deal with this issue. And this was Black, white, Latinx, everybody and their mother showed up. And everybody had a difference of opinion, but we were able to bring people together. I did that the same thing with the dirt bike, right? And so I can say as a leader that I have, in so many ways, brought people together across their differences here in the city of Boston. Now, mind you, my tone and delivery may not be super cute, and I might not be all super polished in my words, and I may not be speaking in that vocabulary, but I'm speaking truth, and I'm doing it in a way that feels comfortable for everybody that shows up.
Well, you making some people uncomfortable, boo. All right, so let's talk about the fireworks. Let's talk about the dirt bikes. What, for those who were not a part of the conversation, what was the end result? Because there were a lot of people that were wholly against it. Whoever over there popping off fireworks, they sound like gunshots. You're masking the gunshots. You're making way for more crime. All of the dirt bikes. Oh my God, like you're taking up traffic. I'm scared that I might run you over and kill you. Like, what was the end result? Because you had two very polar opposite conversations being had at the same time. What came of them?
Yeah, so the first one with the fireworks, we were able to create a trauma-centered PSA series. We also through this effort, the city created a citywide task force to deal with this issue by itself, right? So through our efforts, we were able to create this model, and I'm not gonna say that we cured the fireworks, but the fireworks subsided. You still hear them popping off here and there, but they weren't as traumatic as they were last year. And through the work that we were able to do, and through the mid-summer of last year, we started seeing a decrease in those things popping off, right? The other piece that came of it is that people who didn't understand the issues that a lot of folks in the community were experiencing trauma. Now imagine, losing loved ones and grieving by yourself and not having an outlet because you couldn't go to a funeral because it was death by COVID, right? So what we learned was that the people who were actually doing this were doing this because they were letting off steam, right? They were trying to find ways to release that adrenaline, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're able to educate people and help people understand the why, then you have a little bit more compassion in terms of how you're going to handle that situation. So I think that oftentimes people think that things are going to just change overnight, but it's about shifting the mentality and shifting the way we think. And I think that it's not rocket science. Like, we make things so much more complicated than what they need to be. But when you create space, you're going to have real conversations. You're like, why didn't we think about this 150 years ago, right? Like, why have we been struggling with this when all we have to do is sit across each other and come to terms with what is going to be okay? Mm-hmm. The same thing with the dirt bikes. I was really upset that they were meeting with realizing these young people, right? And no one really created space for them to be heard. And so what we did is we worked with Hot Sauce and Carlos Enriquez to put together a convening in Franklin Park. And we brought people who were the ones that hang out in the punto, that hang out with the music popping until 3 o'clock in the morning. They called us. They called our office. One of the organizers that brings all the music, they called us because they thanked us for at least giving voice to the other side, if you will, and then they partnered with us to bring in those people through the conversation. And through that, we were able to realize that a lot of these issues could be resolved with as simple as harmony. Giving people an opportunity to understand how to do this in a way that is legal, right?
Hold on, time out. So we know New York is looking at a 24-hour party district. You talking about, and they play music until 3-4 o'clock in the AM. And so I'm trying to understand, as far as the permit is concerned, we partying in Franklin Park till 3?
Yeah, so first off, we don't even have happy hours here in the city. But we were able to use that time to help people understand that there is a permitting process. There is a way for them, if they wanted to set up shop, to do so. But at the same time, we were also able to educate them about the noise ordinance that exists, right? Because sometimes people don't know the law, right? And when you know better, the hope is that you
hold on, wait. Because we also have an ordinance that all of these construction sites are supposed to have diversity. So you want to hold accountable those that play music because it's inconvenient to you, but you don't want to hold accountable the money that is being withheld from Bostonians. I'm confused.
Yeah. So when you say you, I just want to be clear.
It's not you.
That's what I'm trying to know, real clear. She may talk about me, because I'm talking about this as a conversation, because we led with the fact that the city of Boston has all of these already laws in place that we don't uphold, right? But we only uphold it when it's a matter of convenience. And I think that it's important for us to recognize that flaw in our system, right? And so what has come of that is the conversation happened less than a month ago. So now we're regrouping with everybody, and we're going to put together some next steps and some infographics, because we really want to teach people, look, if you want to do this, there's ways to do it. Instead of telling people that they can't, because nobody wants to hear that they can't, right? And then the other piece of the work is that we brought in Chief White Hammond, who is the new environmental open space chief for the city, so that we can talk about how we share space, right? Like Franklin Park is our park, right? Everybody has the right to it. But some people, there's been some concerns about the use of it, right? And so we want to really create dialogue around this conversation. And people say, we're not going to have a meeting about the meeting, have a meeting, but you know what? Sometimes none of these conversations have happened ever. So we have to begin somewhere. And through those dialogues, we're able to come to the table with some solutions. In fact, one of the dirt bikers, I was on a radio show with one of them. Look, at the end of the show, I was like, look, can we just even agree, like, we won't ride our bikes at 10 o'clock at night because people can't sleep, or you're not going to play your music, like, can we come to some agreement? He was like, yeah, we could do that. So people, like, they're willing to negotiate, but caught up and sometimes digging so much into their heels that we're not listening to each other. And then this is another example of like the power of convenience. And it's all in how you do it, right? And I think because we're organizers and because that's what East Plan has been able to do so well. Look, before we started off with like 5, 10, 50, we got like 600, almost 700 people who are part of our, mailing list. Like we've grown. And that has been little by little, but it's the spaces, Tayla, that we've always created from the inception, that we step into the space to bring parents together. It's how they feel, how they engage, how we responded to what we heard that matters. And that's why people have stayed engaged, right? And I think that is the same type of leadership that we're bringing to City Hall on all aspects of every single policy that we have passed. Because yes, I've already passed 2 laws. I've only been in office I haven't even finished my first term.
Tell them what it is.
Yeah, so the first one, I'm really excited. We do this, it's called Residential Kitchen. It's an opportunity for people who have baked goods from room temperature. They can incubate their business out of their home instead of renting out that, space and creating a brick and mortar type of space, right? So you could save money and build your business from your home and maybe eventually grow into being able to have a storefront, right? But now we remove the barrier because we already know people have been selling food, and goodies illegally. All we did was make it legal. Boston was one of the few municipalities that didn't have it, right? So we made it legal. Now people can build their business from their home.
Hold on. So it wasn't just cooked food; it was baked goods. Does that include my my Weedables?
Somebody said, "Well, there was no specificity around that." The thing is that you can sell your product at farmers market and online. You can't sell it in your home, but you can make it, bake it, and sell it.
Can you take it to like pizza shops and bodegas and stuff like that?
Exactly. So the whole our vision, we did some partnership with a host of activists that are in this space. But our whole hope around this is that people can now then build their business, right? Support, I hope that the city of Boston will contract some of these vendors to sell their products and cater their products, at some of their events, right? Sell them at other restaurants, go to the farmers market. Like this, you might think it's not a big deal, but I think this has 2 things. One is a way to close that wealth gap that everybody's always talking about. This is, if you can make some of this supplemental income, you're helping to address that wealth gap. And then I also see it as a single mom, I see it as a violence prevention strategy. You know why? Because instead of having 2 jobs, you can have 1 job, and then you can do this on the side hustle. You don't have to work at Target. You can be at home making a living and watching your kids.
And what's the second law you passed?
The second law, we worked in collaboration with Councilor Arroyo and Councilor Campbell on the Civilian Review Board. There's been a lot of talk around holding police officers accountable, and so creating space rather the Civilian Review Board do just that. But what we fought for in that, I'm proud of it, the piece that we obsessed about was to have a young person be part of that panel, and that position for that young person to get paid. Because you can't just keep asking kids to show up and not pay them.
So what about like actually having teeth? The Civilian Review Board, because I remember one of the huge components was the fact that it's fine if there's a Civilian Review Board, but if I'm giving you suggestions and I'm saying that this is wrong and this shouldn't be done, and you're like, well, you're just a civilian, this is the review board, your opinion really don't matter.
Yeah, no, this actually has subpoena power too. So you're able to really put some teeth behind it and get those records that you need publicly to handle the business. And so Stephanie Everett, who you know who's your girl, who you love, she is now the executive director of OPAP, which is the Office of Office of Public Transparency, blah, blah, blah. And so she's going to be leading this effort in the implementation of what it's going to look like, who are the people that are going to get appointed to it, how it's going to operate. All of that is going to fall under her leadership.
Baby mama, I just want to let you know that I applied for the education review. Not the education review board, the
School committee nomination panel?
Yes, I did. I applied. I got my denial letter.
Why didn't you tell me?
Well, because they said that the mayor chooses, so I didn't know it was.
No, I know that we wouldn't have any power, but I actually also applied for that, and I also was denied back in the day. But you know what? But I made it to the interview process.
I didn't get an interview.
Yeah, I made it as far as the interview, and what did I do? The first thing that came out of my mouth is that I looked at everybody around there. You know what I said to them?
All y'all white folks is taking up too much space.
Not really, but what I said was, I said, you know what, this is the problem, is that we have the people who are here deciding who gets appointed to these positions. You all, sitting in these seats, get decided, and I don't think that that's how it should work. People should get elected. We should not be appointing people. Because people are going to appoint people who they believe are palatable.
And their friends, and that they told to go ahead and apply. And so when we had Anissa Sebi George on here, she was like, I think I should be the one to appoint it should be either elected or appointed. And she said that she should be the one as mayor to do the appointing because Boston already is too political with political incentives behind it and people pushing their own agenda. And so she felt as if she should be the mayor should be the one to appoint. It shouldn't be elected base.
Yeah, so you know what? I actually applied to be on the school committee, and I was going in front of them, and I got denied that. That was it. But yeah, no, I think that I support wholeheartedly an elected school board. I think that too much is at stake, and one person should not have all that power. Because you're going to pick people who are going to yes you, who are going to just do what you want them to do. And what we need are people to be independent, which is one of the reasons why I am the way that I am. Because the only people who I have to answer to are the people who put me in office. I don't owe anybody any political favor. None.
How difficult is that for you to navigate that space when that's how politics is ran? Politics is ran by everybody scratching everybody's back. You do this for me, I'll do that for you. Let's go in together on this. Let's be against somebody on that. And we've seen it. I watch the hearings for fun. That's my love in hip hop, is watching y'all go back and forth with each other. And I'm just like, there's absolutely no teamwork at all. And so how is that? For just knowing who you are, how difficult is that to know that you're coming into the space as a black sheep because no one even endorsed you. And so you're feeling like the outliner. And then when you come in and you speak the way that you do and people are yo, I really wish you would shut the hell up sometimes. I don't know how you do it.
Well, so this is what I talk about is the inside-outside strategy. So most of my work is with community organizers and people who are on the pavement around the issues that they care about. So I'm building alongside those who deeply align with me. And then there are some of my council colleagues, we may not agree on everything at all times, but there are a few, moments here and there that we co-sponsor each other's bills, and work together on things. So there are those moments of collaboration, but they're far and few between because, there's 13 city councilors. I'm an at-large counselor, and that's the other piece of it that people need to know. And there's a difference between at-large city councilors and district city councilors. So a lot of the issues of the way things usually work is that when you call our office, depending on where you live, we've always deferred you to your district council because district councils get really particular about their constituents. They don't want at-large counselors all up in their mix. They want you to like mind your business and focus on city.
Considering I'm at large, all of this is my business. All of y'all are my business.
I know. I've been really learning how to navigate that world, right? And so I think that's how we sometimes collaborate when we're helping constituents deal with certain issues because we might have different skills, we might have different networks. That's a way to work together. And then at large counselors, right, we're more like on the citywide, like issues that are like themes, right? Like what's happening across the entire city. And sometimes things that are impacting Dorchester, Rockford, and Manhattan are very different than things that are impacting Charlestown, Alston, and North End, right? So like being an at-large city councilor and trying to find those threads is a little bit harder. And so sometimes I just don't like to stick to the traditional issues that everybody talks about, and yes, and how they impact everybody. But so does violence, right? And trying to help people understand. But I'm not on the public safety committee. That's not one of my niche areas on the council. So you also have to be really careful. It's not just even your district, it's also like what people are responsible for. So Anita is the chair of education. So my first year, I wasn't saying, I always showed up in the public hearing saying, right? So me, I can't be quiet about anything. This year I was a little bit more vocal in the education space, but I also have to be mindful that Anita Sabi-George, I'm counselor at large, Anita Sabi-George is the chair of education. So there's also that dynamic, like there's certain counselors that are responsible for certain issues. And as an at-large counselor, I also have to be super mindful of how I navigate in spaces that are not part of my committeeship.
Mm-hmm. And hold on, what committees are you a part of?
So I'm the chair of small business and workforce development. So that's why we did a lot of programming during COVID. I'm the chair of civil rights. So we've done a lot of work around language access, information justice. So it's not just about interpretation and translation for me. I believe that we need to be culturally competent how we're communicating with people. We need to recognize that not everybody knows how to read and write, even in their own native language. So I think we filed an ordinance to establish a literacy task force here in the city of Boston. And I see that as an opportunity to do three things. One is to look at the food to prison pipeline, because there are a lot of young people who are being passed from grade to grade and don't even know how to read, right? So if we don't know what the problem is, they're going to show up in school frustrated. And then instead of giving them doing the assessment that we need, we're sending them to DYS, right? And so for me, if we could do a deep dive and see what the literacy rates are for our young people, then we could address the problem. The last time that a study was done was in 2003. So my hope is that this task force will really look at this as a way for us to dismantle the food to prison pipeline, which is the work that you and I have started to do with Sequence. The other piece of it is for re-entry. We have a lot of our loved ones who are coming back, after being locked up, and we're expecting them to look for jobs, but they can't even fill out a job application, right? So if we can do a thorough audit around what does that look like, then we could probably start producing more programming around literacy for our returning citizens. So no one's talking about that as a violence prevention strategy, right? These two things I see in this particular realm, like opportunity to really also, get at the root cause of some of the violence that we see, right? And then the last piece of it is because my own mother, she didn't even make it beyond third grade. And the reason why I was able to drop out of high school, and the reason I was able to get away with all the shenanigans that I did growing up is because whenever my mom got a letter, I would always read it for my benefit. And I would sign for her, right? Because she did a little M, like she couldn't even write that well. And so looking at my mom's experiences and a lot of people who have had interrupted education, whether you're an immigrant or you grew up here in the city of Boston, with interrupted education coming in and out of school, there are a lot of people, Tayla, a lot more than what we know, that are struggling And people think that just like putting a social media post that you're gonna know about that rental relief application. So I've been pushing with this literacy task force. My hope is that once we are able to do a deep dive and look at that data, because everything is data, they want to see the numbers before they do anything about it. So I want to create those numbers and be like, here's what we need to do. I like to start utilizing audio and visuals, right, as ways to communicate important information that's coming out of City Hall, right? I want us to address these issues. So, a lot of people think like, what do you do? I see you at a lot of events, but look, what I'm trying to do is dismantle systems of oppression and doing things, the little things that we do without losing sight of the big picture. And I believe these little things, even with the residential kitchens, creating this literacy task force. We also filed an ordinance for commercial vacancies. There are a lot of empty storefronts. They should be opening up these storefronts for small businesses. We're going to do a deep dive around that. And so these are the little things that we believe that we can do to address the wealth gap. And I'm not a politician, right? These things came to me through the work of my own lived experience and the people that have been living these realities and doing the work in these spaces, right? And I think that there are a lot of people who have big ideas, and I love those ideas, but for me, I'm a doer. Like, I'm we respond to people by doing, not by complaining about what other people weren't doing. We just did what we needed to do, period. And that's what these times require. It's people who act with urgency.
My baby mama, Julia Mejia. We have come all the way to the top of the hour. One of the last things that I just wanted to throw out there is because I personally had a question about it, is whether or not we are going to stop saying that these young people are dumb and they can't learn simply because they speak a different language. And so I'm wondering how, as far as education is concerned, can we allow these young people, because if you come in third grade and you don't speak English, we have you taking classes in English, we have you taking tests in English, but yet if you're in third grade and you start learning Spanish, we're not having you take all your tests in Spanish. We're not having you read everything in Spanish. So I don't understand why, when it comes to education and English language learners, why there isn't a duality or bilingual-ish education structure. And plus, every other country, they're bilingual, trilingual, quadlingual. We are so English-centered, and it doesn't make sense. I think it's to our detriment to be so narrow-minded.
Yeah, well, I had to learn how to speak English watching Sesame Street, right? So I came to this country not knowing how to speak English. And English is my second language. And I know how difficult it was for me. And I think that oftentimes when people come to this country, at a certain age, it makes it harder for people to learn how to speak English. But it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't. And I think that is always a cop-out, right? When we say that, oh, they're just going to be an English language learner, we're going to keep them in the strand, when in reality, when you are dual language, there's been studies out there, I don't know all the data around this, so I'm not going to quote it exclusive, but basically, that they say that people who are bilingual, their brain development is more advanced, or something along those lines. I can't quote it and look for it, Taylor, and share with your audience, but we have to see language as an asset, not as a barrier. And that's how we always lead with it, is what we don't have, and what we need to start looking at is how we utilize what we do have as a benefit. And it's about changing that culture and that mindset.
I totally agree with you, baby mama. I love you so much, and I miss you, and I miss spending time with you. And so hopefully one of these days I will get to see you and spend time with you. I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. And keep us updated on what's going on and how we can be more involved.
I don't know, I can't do it on the comments, but I just put in the chat at Julia for Boston. If you could put that up on the screen so people can follow me on my Instagram. And we do these things called a pop-up live where I just really pop up on people and just kick it with them, and they get, through those pop-up lives, I've actually walked away with ideas and protocols and procedures that we need to address. I link people up to services that they need or connect them with other people so that they can build collaboratively. So follow me on Instagram, please. That's where I do all my pop-ups. Sometimes I'll do Facebook, but I have work on Instagram. But it's Julia for Boston, FOR, Julia for Boston. The election is September the 14th. I'm also asking everyone to consider voting for me on September the 14th.
I'm biased. Don't consider it a damn thing. Just vote for Julia Mejia because she absolutely speaks your language, speaks for you, and everything that comes out of her mouth, 9 times out of 10, you're going to agree with. You may not like the way she shows up. You may not like the way she says it. It may hurt your pride and your ego, but at the end of the day, her best interest is in the eyes of the people, and I support her, and I advocate for you. Are my one of 4.
Yep, thank you. And one thing too that I wanted to point out is that I'm an Afro-Latina, and I'm the only Latina running citywide. And there are 130 Latinos in the city of Boston. And if everybody's really serious about representation, y'all gotta keep me in that seat. So at least I can speak Spanish to the people who are trying to navigate city services. So please also consider that as something you need to think about.
I love you so much. Julia for Boston. Make sure you follow her on all social media websites. Her Twitter should be going in. So please follow her on Twitter, follow her on Instagram, on Facebook, and follow her in real life because she's going to lead the way, baby. Whatever you need, she's going to show you the way. And so thank you, Julia. I love you so much. I really do appreciate you. I love what the spaces that you've created, not just for me, but for all other parents and citizens here in Boston. And so we are going to continue having conversations with you and working with your team to have you come on. And I fully support, and we will make sure that we got your back.
And I love you, and thank you. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And voila, I'm seeing you out in these streets. Okay, bye.
You don't have to do nothing. I got you, baby mama. Julia Mejia is absolutely amazing. I love everything about her, and so will you. If you haven't, please go over to her Facebook, her Instagram, take a look at some of the work that she's been doing. We've had past shows with Julia as well, where she has broken down the work that she is doing was doing in the past. C-Plan, the Collaborative Parent Leadership Action Network, is for any and all parents that want, the teachers have unions, bus drivers have unions, the damn bus monitors have a whole get together. But yet when it comes to parents, we don't have a unified voice where we can say, this is not right. We don't like the curriculum. No, it's not okay for 49% of BLA to not be representative of what we look like here in the city. And so C-Plan, the website is dope. Shout out to Evalise who put together our website. And so if there's anything that you need as far as the parent side is concerned, that is not Julia's specialty anymore because she is our city councilor at wide, but you can absolutely go to the website, sign up, and be an active parent. And it's not just Boston, it's across Massachusetts. And so I have come and wasted all of our time together in a positive way, of course. And you know what tomorrow is, Freaky Friday. I am still looking for a house. If you know somebody who is selling a house here in Boston, it's broke down, it's decrepit, it's on a burn list, it has flood damage, water damage. I personally need a house in Boston. And so please connect me with the grandmother who no longer wants the house, with nieces and nephews who ain't taking care of the house, whomever, 617-459-0041. I'm going to continue to throw that out there until somebody calls me and says, Tayla, I found one for you. I am a real estate agent. I don't need nobody to connect me with a real estate agent. I have full access to MLS. What I need is somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who has a house who is willing to sell it to somebody who is not going to condo it out and gentrify it, because that is not what we're going to do. All of the tenants will be of Section 8. And so with that being said, I am TaylaAndre. Waking Up with TaylaAndre has absolutely nothing to do with this time of day we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness, t-shirts, hoodies, and so much more. TaylaAndre.com.